Hey, what's up? My name's Hubwood, and in today's review we're going to take a closer look at the 17-inch entry-level to middle-class office laptop, the Lenovo V17 G4, whereas the G4 stands for 4th generation, which in this case comes with an Intel i3 1315U. And that is a 6-core 8-thread Raptor Lake CPU with 2 performance cores only, plus hyperthreading and 4 additional efficiency cores, with a boost clock of up to 4.5 GHz. It also integrated an Iris Xe UHD graphics unit with 64 EUs, also known as execution units. Furthermore, this configuration, which is called Lenovo V17 G4 IRU, we also get 16 GB of DDR4 3200 MHz RAM in dual channel mode. An M.2 SSD by Samsung with a good reading speed of around 2.8 GB per second, but a rather lower writing speed of around 1.3 GB per second, which, to be clear, is fast enough for absolutely everything that like 99.9% of the owners of such a laptop will do. And it includes a 45 watt-hour battery, which can provide good runtimes due to the efficient CPU. It also sports a pretty decent 17-inch Full HD display with actually good brightness and color values, which is very uncommon in this price category, but we will talk about that in a bit. It also comes with Windows 11 pre-installed, and the included 65-watt AC adapter is pretty small in size and weight. Did you know that most of the people watching my videos are not subscribed? So you know what to do. Please be aware that there are several versions of the V17 out there, but the basics like the chassis, keyboard, build quality, cooling system, etc. will be most likely similar or the same if you get the G4 version, that is. Also be aware that the 15-inch screen, the smaller ones, the V15 variants, will most likely come with a different or weaker screen as well as a different set of connections. Whenever I don't mention prices for my reviewed laptops, people are asking for them anyway, so here you have the prices, but since my viewers literally come from around the world, be aware that they can be completely different for your country and can only give you a vague idea of what to expect. The cheapest versions will actually start at around $400, but today's tested unit is probably more like a $600 to $700 laptop in most countries, I guess. And you will be able to configure it up to an Intel i7. Furthermore, it's important to know that my unit here only has one M.2 slot, but you can upgrade the RAM since 8 GB are soldered to the motherboard, and the other 8 GB can be replaced by up to 32 GB for a total of 40 GB. But if you want to upgrade it that high, make absolutely sure that your model supports an additional 32 GB, as some models actually, as it seems, will only take another 16 GB for a total of 24. But this G4 IRU model can actually take the 40 GB. Okay, so my plan is to focus on giving you an idea on how the laptop feels like in the first place and what to expect from a Lenovo V17 G4 in general. So let's talk about the build quality first. And it's important to know that even though you can configure this laptop up to around $800 or plus minus more or less, or even $900, as it's available starting at around $400, that price is determining the overall build quality of the chassis, the keyboard, etc. by like a lot. So in that price category, it is, as expected, built inside a full plastic chassis with an overall decent sturdiness. It's okay, but not exactly great in avoiding fingerprints. The display flex is decent and the hinge made a good impression on me, but unfortunately it's absolutely impossible to open the laptop with one hand. But the maximum display opening angle is pretty wide. I also have to point out that the rougher bottom material, this one, seems to be pretty prone to scratches, as just using my laptop stand was causing a few lighter scratches over here. And that's kind of unfortunate. The keyboard is pretty mediocre but functional. The key travel is almost not existent and therefore way too short for my taste. It has a full numpad though, and the keyboard flex is actually pretty solid. PS, the keys aren't lit at all, so working in a very dark room can become a bit problematic. And it also has an integrated fingerprint sensor integrated into the power button as well, which seemed to work fine for me. But still, considering the mediocreness of the keyboard, overall I was able to achieve good writing speeds once I got used to the layout and the feeling. The touchpad is pretty small compared to the laptop size, and it's pretty far on the left side. The required force to trigger the click was a bit too high for my taste. It's not terrible though. The laptop only weighs 2 kg despite its 17-inch monitor and has a pretty low total height of only 2 cm, though the actual maximum height is like 2 to 3 mm high due to the rubber feet at the bottom, this big line over here. Via pressing Fn plus Q, you can choose between a battery saving, a silent mode, and a cooling mode, and the performance mode, which both impacts the fan speeds and the performance. Overall, the laptop can become pretty silent with its single fan cooling solution, though under full load while gaming or rendering, it becomes quite hearable without being really annoying though. While doing office tasks or watching YouTube, it basically stays pretty silent, with the fan sometimes turning off when it's just idling for a while. Temperature-wise, even under full gaming or CPU load, the CPU didn't go above 65 degrees Celsius at a room temperature of around 23 degrees Celsius, which is perfectly fine. And the laptop surface does not get hot even after a while of full load, which is most likely due to the fact that in the long run, the total wattage it pulls from the wall is only around 34 watt. It doesn't even get hot around the WASD keys over here. The speakers actually aren't terrible, though we're hearing the usual shortage for the bass, or basically it's not existent, and the overall loudness is clearly too low since the speakers are most likely 1 watt speakers, which I could not find out in the laptop's documentation, to be honest. But for most regular use cases it's going to be okay, and anybody with more aspirations will use dedicated speakers or headphones anyway. The integrated camera has a kill switch, which is always nice to have, and a resolution of 720p. Oh, and by the way, this is what the integrated camera looks like and the integrated microphone sounds like, and this is what typing sounds like when recording. The laptop has a rather basic set of ports/connections, but it's mostly sufficient for its class. There are no connections at the back side of the laptop, and at the left side we're getting the power connector, a USB 3.2 port, an HDMI 1.4 port, which does support 4K but only at 30 Hz, as well as a USB-C 3.2 type port with DisplayPort support but no Thunderbolt, and a 3.5mm audio jack for your headphone or your headset. On the right side we're getting a USB 2.0 port only and a SD card reader, which is of course always nice to have. But so we're only getting 2 times USB 3, which is a bit disappointing, so quite a few users would need to think about getting a USB hub, I guess. But at least the cable tangle will be mostly on the left side. And as far as I'm aware, you cannot charge the laptop via USB-C. It is important to know that the screen quality might vary quite a lot between countries/continents and the different versions of the laptop. But in the case of this 17-inch Full HD 60Hz IPS screen, I was measuring a pretty good maximum brightness of up to 350 nits, with a great color accuracy of 95% of the sRGB color range, 71% NTSC and 74% for Adobe RGB. If you're familiar with these values, you know that these are pretty good results, especially for this price category. And even more professional creative users won't have anything to complain about in that case. I also have to point out that there was basically no backlight bleeding at all, so overall the screen really is a nice surprise. The relatively small 45 Wh battery was providing satisfying runtimes due to the efficient i3-1315U. So I got around 9.25 hours on idle with 20% display brightness and activated Wi-Fi, which is pretty okay considering it's only 45 Wh. And watching YouTube at 50% brightness and 20% loudness with headphones, the laptop was using around 8.5 watt in total, which resulted in a runtime of about 5.3 hours. In 30 minutes, the battery charged from 20% to 63%. The Lenovo Vantage software offers a rapid charge option, which was activated. It also offers a battery preservation mode to stop the charging at around 75 to 80%. Now, as mentioned before, the performance will rely a lot on the configuration that you are getting, but I'll just feed you with some quick information on what I was able to achieve with the i3 1315U and the 16GB of DDR4 RAM. The laptop literally wakes up from sleep mode within the blink of an eye, which is really nice. Booting the laptop when it's completely shut down only takes around 16 seconds, which is exceptional for its hardware configuration in my opinion. Considering the Wi-Fi, I personally have a gigabit internet connection, and testing the Wi-Fi 6 adapter in this laptop right next to my router resulted in a download speed of up to 690 Mbits and a ping of 17 milliseconds, which is decent enough. In Cinebench R23, I was getting up to 5,237 points on the multi-core and 1,649 points on the single-core test, which is pretty decent for a low-wattage mobile i3 CPU. In PCMark 10, which is a free tool to test a variety of everyday work scenarios, I was getting a total score of up to 4,775 points in performance mode when the laptop was plugged in, and 4,345 points on battery. That means it will be more than fast enough for everyday tasks, so no worries here. In the gaming-related 3D Mark Firestrike benchmark, I was getting 2,972 points in total, and in TimeSpy I was getting 1,145 points, though that will differ quite a lot on the models with weaker or faster CPUs and their appropriate iGPUs. I've actually also tested the gaming experience in a very detailed video, in which I've tested this laptop in 50 games, so make sure to check out that afterwards. Though, spoiler up front, there are quite some games that you will be able to play with at least 30 FPS at 720p and even some lighter games with at least 60 FPS at 1080p, and we'll now take a quick look at 4 assorted games that ran pretty well on this specific laptop. I tested CSGO at very low settings in 1080p and saw an average of around 85 FPS with a rather low 1% low of only 34 FPS, and as you can see here, I had more stutters than usually when testing this game. I don't know if this could be improved with further driver updates, since it actually should run a bit better than that in my opinion. As you can see in the OSD, the GPU hasn't even been fully utilized, even with the 2 pretty strong performance cores of the i3 1315U. I was really surprised how good Control ran at 1080p with 720p resolution scaling in low settings while still looking acceptable. The average FPS were around 43 with a 1% low of 22 FPS. I mean, the frame times aren't really good, but for a third-person game it's still endurable if you're not expecting too much from a laptop like this. Of course, capping the FPS at 30 would be a good possibility to further soften the frame times, since there have been some stutters here and there. But still, I didn't expect it to be actually playable on an entry-level laptop, office laptop that is. Such games would definitely not have been playable on equivalent hardware a few years back. I was testing Minecraft at 1080p with 30 chunks visibility and 2x anti-aliasing, which resulted in an average of around 78 FPS after removing the frame cap and a 1% low of around 40 FPS. I guess that would be playable for most people, and I'm pretty sure you could install some mods due to the, in this case, 16GB of RAM and the fact that the CPU has a total of 8 threads. Playing Anno 1800 on lower frame rates is absolutely alright, considering it's a rather slow-paced game. At 1080p plus FSR balanced and low settings, I saw around 25 to 30 FPS in most cases, while it's still looking good enough. I personally would play this title that way, especially if you're using a dedicated mouse, that is. Though be aware that if you're only having 8GB, it might not run that fast. Okay, so as we can see, the laptop even offers a minimum gaming performance for some fun in your free time if you're happy with mostly lighter games or lower settings. In my personal opinion, this is a really good entry-level laptop with a decent build quality for its price and enough power for everyday tasks and even some gaming. It has an exceptional screen for its price category, and the battery life is nice as well. I've seen 60-watt-hour battery laptops with shorter runtimes, really. Considering this laptop starts at $400 in lower configurations, we are getting a great package with a decent build quality and some nice features for its price. And it's definitely a recommendation from my side for people that just want a nice, reliable mobile PC without getting cheap junk. It will also absolutely be perfect for surfing, office programs, YouTube, lighter after-work gaming, and even advanced picture editing to some extent, as Photoshop, etc. Will just run fine on the i3. If you are willing to carry around a 17-inch machine, you could probably even use this for university if you'll manage your energy saving, shut-off timings and power consumption the right way. If you like this review, consider liking the video and or subscribe to the channel as well. Alright, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye bye and tschüss.